"You bought it, now finish it," she said, but what he discovered beneath broke him. Marcus leaned against the worn metal railing of the marketplace platform, watching the twin suns sink behind the jagged mountains of Seraphis 7. The sky glowed a strange mix of pink and gold, the color spilling over the edges of distant buildings like spilled paint. Ships of all shapes hummed and whirred overhead, landing and taking off in rhythmic patterns. For most people, the marketplace was a place of excitement, filled with merchants selling rare spices, alien fabrics, and trinkets from worlds no human had ever set foot on. For Marcus, it was a place of opportunity and danger. He adjusted the strap of his tool belt, feeling the comforting weight of his multi-purpose wrench. It wasn't much, but it had kept him alive more times than he cared to remember. He scanned the crowded stalls, his sharp eyes darting over the alien merchants shouting in languages he only partially understood. His job was simple: find valuable salvage, buy it at a low price, and sell it at a profit. Simple, but far from easy. "Over here," a sharp voice called. Marcus turned, squinting through the glow of neon lights and dust. A woman stood at the edge of a shadowed alleyway, her stance straight, her expression serious. She wasn't like the usual merchants. No bright scarves, no shouting, no desperate gestures. She wore a simple black coat, faded at the edges, and her boots were polished to a mirror shine. Something about her demanded attention. "You look like you know your way around tech," she said. Her voice was calm, almost cold, but there was an edge to it that made Marcus curious. "I have something special, for someone who can handle it." Marcus raised an eyebrow, his instincts kicking in. "Special is usually code for broken," he said, keeping his tone light but wary. "What are you selling?" She reached under her coat and pulled out a small, metallic object wrapped in a thick cloth. She held it carefully, as if it were alive. "This," she said, "is more than just metal and wires. You bought it, now finish it." Her words were strange, almost like a challenge. She looked at him as if daring him to refuse. Marcus hesitated. He had seen plenty of mysterious artifacts in his time, some worth a fortune, others worth nothing but trouble. But something about the way she said it, the way she held it, made his heart race. His hands itched to unwrap it, to see what secrets it held beneath the cloth. "How much?" he asked, trying to mask his excitement. "Enough," she said simply. "But not too much that you can't afford it if it destroys you." Marcus laughed nervously, a sound that didn't reach his eyes. "Sounds fair." He handed over a stack of credits, the digital chips humming softly as they passed from his hand to hers. She nodded once and vanished into the crowd before he could ask her another question. Marcus tucked the artifact under his arm, feeling its weight. It wasn't heavy, but it had a strange warmth, almost like it was alive. Back at his workshop, Marcus set the artifact on the central workbench. The room was small, cluttered with tools, spare parts, and half-finished projects. Dust clung to every surface, and the hum of machinery filled the air. He unwrapped the cloth carefully, revealing a small device, roughly the size of a human head. It was covered in alien markings, etched deeply into metal that seemed impossibly strong. Wires coiled around it like serpents, pulsing faintly with light. Marcus ran his fingers over the surface, marveling at the craftsmanship. It was unlike anything he had ever seen. "What the hell?" he muttered. The artifact seemed ordinary at first glance, but the more he looked, the more he realized it was anything but. There were hidden seams, faint energy readings, and a rhythm to the pulsing wires that reminded him of a heartbeat. He set to work immediately, his hands moving with practiced skill. Every layer he uncovered revealed something more complex than the last. Tiny mechanisms clicked into place, and holographic projections flickered in the air, showing abstract shapes and symbols. Marcus tried to make sense of them, but they seemed alive, constantly shifting and changing. It was like trying to read a language that had no words, only patterns and emotions. Hours passed, or maybe days. Marcus lost track. The workshop grew colder, The suns outside disappeared completely, leaving only the faint glow of neon from the city beyond. The artifact seemed to respond to him, its lights brightening when he touched it, its patterns slowing when he paused. Marcus realized with a mixture of awe and fear that it wasn't just a machine. It was intelligent. At one point, a low hum filled the room, vibrating through his chest. Marcus stepped back, heart racing. The artifact projected a series of shapes into the air, an image of a world destroyed, buildings crumbling, skies filled with smoke. He recognized it instinctively as a warning. But a warning of what? Sleep didn't come that night or the next. Marcus ate little, drank little, and worked tirelessly, driven by curiosity and a strange sense of destiny. The artifact's secrets were tantalizing, promising knowledge beyond anything humanity had achieved. And yet, every discovery came with a growing unease, a sense that he was touching something dangerous, something that had survived not by chance but by design. By the third day, Marcus realized the artifact was sending signals, tiny bursts of energy that reached far beyond the city, far beyond the planet. He tried to trace them, but the patterns were too complex. It was as if the device knew he was watching, deliberately hiding its path. The thought made him shiver. Who or what was on the other end of those signals? And why had Mara been so insistent that he finish it? A sudden knock at the workshop door made him jump. Marcus grabbed his wrench instinctively, ready for an intruder. The door opened slowly and no one was there, just the echo of footsteps fading into the hallway. His pulse raced. He had never been this tense in his own workspace. It was as if the artifact had changed the rules. Marcus sat down heavily, rubbing his eyes. He realized something crucial. Finishing the artifact wasn't just a matter of skill, it was a test. Mara had said it herself. "You bought it, now finish it." The words had weighed on him from the moment he heard them, but now their meaning was clear. This wasn't just a machine. It was a challenge, a puzzle meant to push him, and only him, to the limits of human ingenuity. He looked at the artifact, its lights flickering softly, almost as if it were breathing. Marcus felt a strange connection, a pull that went beyond curiosity. It was as if it recognized him and he recognized it. The thought was both thrilling and terrifying. Marcus knew one thing with certainty. He couldn't stop now. He had committed, bought it, taken responsibility. And now, whatever lay beneath the surface of that mysterious artifact, he would uncover it. Whether it changed him, destroyed him, or gave him power beyond imagination, he didn't yet know. But one thing was clear. Marcus, a human with determination, intelligence, and courage, was about to face something that no one else could. And in the vast universe, sometimes that made all the difference. The nights on Seraphis 7 had grown longer, darker, and colder. Marcus's workshop, normally a place of comfort and order, had turned into a chamber of obsession. The artifact sat in the center of the workbench, its faint glow casting strange shadows across the walls. Marcus had spent hours, maybe days, he could no longer tell, studying it. Each layer he peeled back revealed mechanisms and circuits that defied human understanding. It wasn't just the complexity that fascinated him. It was the way the artifact seemed to react to him, almost as if it were alive. When he touched a delicate wire, a soft hum pulsed through the room. When he spoke aloud, the symbols etched in its surface shifted, forming patterns that resembled thoughts, or perhaps emotions. Marcus had seen advanced alien technology before, but this was different. This was something that had been designed to think. He traced a finger along one of the etched lines, and suddenly his vision shimmered. For a moment, the walls of the workshop disappeared. He saw another world, a planet bathed in green light with structures that floated above the ground. The air shimmered with energy, and the sky was filled with streaks of color unlike anything on Earth. He blinked, and the vision vanished, leaving only the hum of the artifact. "What are you?" he whispered. The question seemed to hang in the air, and then faintly he heard it, A whisper, almost imperceptible like the sound of wind through metal pipes. Marcus froze. The voice didn't have words, but it carried meaning, emotions that he could feel rather than understand. Curiosity, fear, sadness, a longing for something lost. Marcus knew he was dealing with something far beyond human technology, and yet he couldn't stop. There was a pull stronger than fear, stronger than caution. The artifact demanded his attention, his understanding. It was a puzzle, a secret, and perhaps even a companion. Days merged into nights as Marcus worked tirelessly. He documented every observation, every strange pattern, every flicker of light. He experimented carefully, adjusting circuits, calibrating energy flows, and even connecting small neural probes to the artifact. It responded each time, not violently, but deliberately, like it was testing him as much as he was testing it. It was on the fourth night that Marcus discovered the first hidden compartment. He had been following a faint vibration along one of the metal panels when he noticed a seam that hadn't been there before, or that he had missed. With careful precision, he pried it open. Inside was a tiny crystal, glowing softly with a blue light. It hummed in his hand, warm to the touch, and the moment he held it, he felt a rush of images. Cities rising and falling, beings with translucent skin communicating without words, oceans filled with creatures that seemed to understand thought itself. Marcus staggered back, nearly dropping the crystal. What is this?" he asked aloud. The artifact responded with a pattern of light, pulsing slowly as if reassuring him. The more he explored, the more he realized that the crystal was not just a piece of energy, it was a memory. And not just a memory, but a consciousness. A being, or perhaps a species, preserved inside the artifact. Over the next few days, Marcus worked to carefully interface with the crystal. He devised small programs to read the energy patterns, translating the pulses into images and emotions he could understand. Each time he succeeded, he saw more. A civilization that had once spanned multiple star systems, a people who had mastered technologies that could heal planets, control weather, even bend energy to their will. But there was also tragedy. Marcus saw wars, devastating conflicts where the alien species had fought itself into near extinction. Entire worlds burned, oceans boiled, skies filled with toxic clouds. The crystal's energy pulsed erratically, and Marcus felt the sorrow of a species that had been erased from the universe, leaving only this artifact behind. This can't be real," he murmured, his hands trembling. He had touched history, but it was more than history, it was alive. The artifact wasn't just telling a story, it was sharing a consciousness, teaching Marcus things that no human had ever known. And then, as he worked, Marcus realized something more disturbing. The artifact was not inert. It was sending signals, small bursts of energy directed far beyond Seraphis 7. At first, Marcus tried to ignore them, assuming they were part of the artifact's internal processes. But when he traced the signals, he found they led to deep space, to coordinates that had never been mapped by human explorers. Someone, or something, was receiving these signals. Marcus's heart pounded. He had bought the artifact thinking it was a puzzle to solve, a machine to finish. But now he understood the real danger. Whatever was on the other end of those signals might not want him to complete it. They might want to destroy it or claim it for themselves. Despite the fear, Marcus couldn't stop. The artifact had become more than a project. It had become a part of him. Its pulse synced with his own heartbeat, and he felt an almost telepathic connection, as though it could sense his thoughts and emotions. He spoke to it sometimes, even though he knew it couldn't respond in words. "I don't know what you are," he said one night, "but I will understand you. I will finish you." The artifact pulsed in response, a gentle thrum that echoed in his chest. Then the first visitors arrived. Marcus had been expecting trouble, but not this soon. Shadows moved outside the workshop, figures dressed in dark suits, their helmets reflecting the glow of the artifact. They didn't knock. They didn't speak. They only watched. Marcus felt a surge of adrenaline. He grabbed his tools, ready for a fight, but hesitated. He wasn't dealing with ordinary thieves or mercenaries. These were professionals, disciplined and precise, and they were not human. The shape of their bodies was humanoid, but the proportions were off: elongated limbs, faintly luminescent skin, and eyes that reflected light like mirrors. Marcus realized with a shock that they were after the artifact. They had been tracking it, and now that it had activated fully, it had drawn their attention. He needed a plan. He couldn't fight them head-on. He had to protect the artifact and himself. Marcus quickly activated the workshop's defensive systems, creating a series of barriers and locks. He redirected power to the floors and walls, turning the space into a maze of energy fields. The intruders hesitated but were clearly undeterred. They began probing the barriers with devices that hummed and glowed, testing each obstacle with precision. As Marcus worked, he realized something incredible. The artifact was helping him. Its pulsing light shifted, forming patterns that corresponded with the intruders' movements. He followed the patterns instinctively, adjusting the defenses in time with the artifact's guidance. For the first time, he felt a true partnership with the machine, not as a tool but as an intelligent ally. Hours passed. The intruders tested every corner, but Marcus and the artifact stayed one step ahead. Exhausted, he finally watched as they retreated into the night, leaving faint traces of energy that would soon dissipate. The workshop was silent once more, except for the soft hum of the artifact. Marcus sank into a chair, breathing heavily. He had survived, but the encounter had left him shaken. He realized the stakes were higher than he had imagined. This artifact was not just a puzzle or a treasure. It was a beacon, a vessel containing the knowledge and memory of an entire civilization. And there were beings in the universe who would kill, or worse, to claim it. He looked at the artifact, its light pulsing gently in the dim room. "I have to finish you," he said quietly. "I have to understand you. I have to protect you, because no one else could." And in that moment, Marcus understood something profound. Humanity, fragile and small in the vast universe, had a unique strength: ingenuity, courage, and the ability to see not just what was, but what could be. Alone, the artifact was powerful, but together with him, it had the potential to change everything. He didn't know what lay ahead. The artifact had secrets that could break him, or perhaps make him greater than he had ever imagined. But Marcus made a decision. He would uncover every secret, navigate every danger, and finish what he had begun. The journey was only beginning. Marcus sat alone in his workshop, the faint hum of the artifact filling the quiet room. Days and nights had blurred into one long stretch of labor and discovery. He had barely slept, eaten, or left the building. Every ounce of his mind and energy had gone into understanding the artifact. But now he felt a weight pressing on him, heavier than any machinery or puzzle he had ever faced. He leaned back in his chair and studied the artifact again. Its glow was steady, almost patient, as if it had been waiting for him to reach this point. Marcus realized that he had come further than he ever thought possible. He had accessed the hidden crystal, deciphered patterns, and even survived the first visit from the unknown intruders. But he sensed that he was standing at the edge of something far greater, something that would change him, and perhaps humanity forever. He took a deep breath and placed his hands on the artifact. The moment his fingers touched the smooth metal, images flashed through his mind. At first they were chaotic, a jumble of lights, colors, and shapes. Then they began to form into something recognizable: cities, landscapes, and beings with strange, almost translucent skin. They moved with grace and intelligence, speaking without words, building technology that defied human comprehension. Marcus realized with growing awe that these were memories. Not just memories, but the recorded consciousness of an entire species. They had encoded themselves into the artifact, leaving behind a legacy that would survive even after their physical bodies were gone. He felt a wave of emotion wash over him: wonder, curiosity, and a deep sadness. These beings had been extraordinary, but they had vanished. As he explored further, the memories took a darker turn. Wars ravaged their worlds, cities burned, and skies turned red with fire. Marcus saw the species' mistakes, the pride, the greed, the misuse of their own inventions. Entire planets had been destroyed in conflicts that had lasted centuries. And yet, there was brilliance among the chaos. Discoveries of energy that could power entire worlds, technology that could heal ecosystems, and ideas that transcended their time. Marcus felt the weight of it all. He was holding the knowledge of a civilization that had reached heights humanity could only dream of, and had fallen because of its own flaws. This is incredible, he whispered, but also terrifying. The artifact pulsed gently in response, as if acknowledging his understanding. Then, suddenly, a new series of images appeared, different from the rest. This time they were not memories but instructions. Step by step, they showed how the species had tried to preserve themselves, encoding their consciousness into the artifact to survive after their extinction. The process was delicate, precise, and beyond anything Marcus had ever attempted. He realized the truth. Finishing the artifact was not just about unlocking knowledge. It was about completing a legacy, preserving the memory of an entire species, and making decisions that could alter the course of the universe. The responsibility pressed down on him, heavier than any machine he had worked on. Marcus leaned back, rubbing his eyes. He had known from the beginning that the artifact was special, but he hadn't understood just how profound it truly was. Every action he took now would have consequences, not just for him, but for humanity. And worse, there were others in the universe who knew of the artifact, beings who would stop at nothing to claim it or destroy it. The realization made him shiver. He had faced danger before, but this was different. The stakes were no longer about profit or survival. They were about morality, ethics, and the fate of knowledge itself. Marcus knew that humans had strengths the alien species had lacked: creativity, empathy, and the ability to make choices guided not just by logic, but by conscience. That might be humanity's only advantage. Over the next several days, Marcus worked tirelessly, deciphering the instructions embedded in the crystal. He carefully calibrated the energy flows, adjusted the mechanisms, and connected his neural interface to the artifact. With every step, he felt the alien consciousness more clearly, as if it were guiding him, testing him, and observing his decisions. The artifact seemed to respond to his emotions. When he hesitated, unsure of a choice, its glow dimmed slightly. When he acted with determination or compassion, the light brightened, filling the room with a soft warmth. Marcus realized that this was more than technology. It was a form of intelligence, one that could sense intent and morality. Late one night, Marcus sat back and stared at the artifact. He had reached a critical point. The final sequence of instructions required a choice: a way to preserve the alien consciousness safely, or to release it into the universe, granting humanity access to unparalleled knowledge but risking disaster if misused. The decision weighed heavily on him. He could feel the presence of the species, waiting for his judgment, trusting him to make the right choice. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Marcus thought of humanity, their flaws, yes, but also their potential for greatness. He remembered the lessons he had learned from the artifact itself: curiosity, perseverance, and courage. And he realized something important: humans were capable of choices guided not just by survival, but by morality. That was the difference. With resolve, Marcus began the final sequence. He carefully adjusted the crystal, syncing its energy with his neural interface. The artifact hummed louder, pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. He could feel the alien consciousness merging with his own mind, a fusion of human and alien thought. It was overwhelming, a torrent of knowledge and emotion unlike anything he had ever experienced. Images and sensations flooded his mind. The rise and fall of civilizations, the beauty of alien art, the intricacy of their technology, and the heartbreak of their mistakes. Marcus felt every triumph and every failure as if it were his own. The experience was exhausting, but he persevered, guided by the principles that had always defined humanity: empathy, ingenuity, and courage. Hours passed, and finally the artifact pulsed one last time. The energy stabilized and the hum settled into a steady, calm rhythm. Marcus opened his eyes and saw the artifact glowing softly, serene and complete. He had done it. He had finished the artifact, not just technically but morally, ethically, and thoughtfully. A wave of relief washed over him. He had succeeded, but he also knew that this was only the beginning. The knowledge contained within the artifact was vast, and it would take time for humanity to understand its potential fully. Marcus realized that he held the key to a future that could be extraordinary or catastrophic. The responsibility was enormous, but he felt ready. At that moment, the workshop door opened, and a familiar figure stepped inside. Mara, the mysterious trader who had sold him the artifact, looked at him with a calm, knowing expression. "You finished it," she said simply, "and you survived yourself." Marcus nodded, exhausted but proud. "It's more than I imagined," he admitted. "It's alive. It's consciousness itself." Mara smiled faintly. "That's why I chose you. Humans see things differently. You have the strength to make choices, to understand responsibility. That's something the universe often underestimates." Marcus looked at the artifact, its light reflecting in his eyes. He realized that he had become part of something much greater than himself, a bridge between humanity and a lost civilization. The experience had changed him, shaped him, and taught him that humanity's greatest strength was not technology, not power, but the ability to choose wisely. Outside, the twin suns of Seraphis 7 began to rise, casting a soft glow across the landscape. Marcus felt a sense of hope, tempered with caution. The universe was vast, and there were countless mysteries still waiting to be discovered. But he knew one thing: humanity had a role to play, and he had proven that humans could rise to challenges that no other species could face. He placed a hand on the artifact, feeling its warmth. "We're just getting started," he said quietly. And for the first time in weeks, Marcus allowed himself to rest, knowing that the artifact's secrets were safe, and that he had fulfilled the first part of his destiny. The revelation was complete. Marcus had uncovered the truth beneath the artifact, faced the weight of knowledge, and emerged stronger. The journey ahead would be dangerous and uncertain, but he was ready. For the first time, he understood what it truly meant to be human, and why humans were special in a universe full of wonders, dangers, and forgotten civilizations. Marcus had expected challenges from the artifact, but he had not expected the universe itself to test him so soon. Days after completing the final sequence, the calm hum of the workshop was shattered by a sudden, sharp alarm. The artifact's light flared brighter than ever before, casting long, flickering shadows across the walls. Marcus froze, his heart hammering. Something or someone was approaching. Through the reinforced windows of his workshop he saw them, sleek, black ships hovering silently above the city. They moved with precision, as though they had anticipated his every action. These were not the alien intruders he had encountered before. These were larger, more organized, and far more dangerous. Marcus realized immediately that they were here for the artifact. He took a deep breath, forcing himself to stay calm. He had prepared for situations like this. Humanity had a unique way of handling threats, with ingenuity and adaptability. Marcus knew he had to protect the artifact, not just for himself, but for the knowledge and consciousness it held. He activated the workshop's defenses. Energy barriers sprang to life, forming grids that covered the entrances and windows. The floor beneath his feet hummed as protective fields aligned with the artifact's energy signature. Marcus worked quickly, syncing the systems with the artifact itself. He felt the device's pulse guiding him, anticipating the movements of the approaching attackers. The first wave struck just after nightfall. The ships deployed small, humanoid drones, moving swiftly and silently toward the workshop. Marcus watched them through the energy shields, noting their precision and coordination. These were not mindless machines. They were intelligent, adaptive, and lethal. Marcus tightened his grip on his tools. He knew that brute force alone would not work. He had to outthink them, use the artifact to its full potential. Placing his hand on the glowing crystal, he allowed the energy to flow through his neural interface. The artifact responded immediately, sending pulses that interfered with the drone's sensors, confusing them and causing them to miscalculate their movements. It was exhilarating. Marcus felt a strange partnership forming between himself and the artifact. He was no longer just a human engineer. He was a strategist, a pilot, and a protector, all guided by the intelligence of a species long gone. The drones faltered, collided, and fell under the workshop's defenses, unable to adapt to the combined ingenuity of human thought and alien guidance. But Marcus knew this was only the beginning. The real test was yet to come. The ships themselves began descending, their energy shields crackling as they approached the protective barrier surrounding the workshop. Marcus could see the pilots inside, alien beings, larger and more imposing than the first intruders, with eyes that seemed to pierce through his very thoughts. They had come prepared, and they were not willing to leave empty-handed. Marcus took a deep breath and focused. He had to make a choice, a strategy that only a human could conceive. He quickly recalibrated the workshop's energy grids, creating a series of traps that exploited the attacker's predictable patterns. The artifact pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat, guiding his hands and movements. Together, they formed a system of defense that was more than just machines. It was intelligence meeting intelligence. The aliens attempted to breach the workshop, but every move they made was countered. Energy pulses redirected their attacks, doors and walls shifted to block entry, and traps disabled their ships one by one. Marcus felt a surge of pride. Humanity had always been underestimated in the universe, but this was proof that human ingenuity, paired with morality and determination, could stand against even the most advanced adversaries. Hours passed in a blur of energy, light, and strategy. Marcus never stopped moving, never stopped thinking. The artifact's energy flowed through him, amplifying his decisions and guiding his reflexes. He realized something profound. Humans had survived in the harshest environments, adapted to the impossible, and created technology from nothing. That same spirit was now protecting a legacy older and wiser than any human civilization. As dawn approached, the attackers began to retreat. They had underestimated the humans' ability to adapt, to combine intellect with morality, and to act with courage. Marcus watched them leave, knowing that this was only a temporary victory. The universe was vast, and there would be others who sought the artifact. But for now, he had proven that humans could face challenges that others could not. Exhausted but alert, Marcus collapsed into a chair, his hands still trembling from the adrenaline. He looked at the artifact, its glow soft and steady now. "We did it," he whispered. "We survived, and we'll survive again if we have to." But even as he spoke, Marcus knew that survival was not enough. The artifact held knowledge and power beyond imagination, and he had a responsibility to ensure that it was used wisely. The next step was not just protection, it was understanding. Humanity could learn from this lost species, adapt their lessons, and perhaps avoid the mistakes that had led to extinction. Over the next few days, Marcus focused on analysis and study. He used the neural interface to explore deeper layers of the artifact's memory. This time he was not just accessing knowledge, he was conversing with it in a way. The alien consciousness responded to his thoughts and intentions, teaching him without words, guiding him with images and emotions. He learned of technologies that could stabilize planets, heal ecosystems, and generate energy without harming environments. He saw the potential for human civilization to rise beyond its current limits, to explore the stars with wisdom rather than greed. But he also saw the warnings. Arrogance, misuse of knowledge, and moral failure could destroy not just one world, but entire star systems. Marcus understood that this was the real test. The artifact had been designed not just to preserve knowledge, but to challenge whoever found it. It was a measure of character, morality, and ingenuity. Humanity's strength lay not in the artifact itself, but in the choices Marcus would make, and by extension, the choices that humans would make if they ever accessed this knowledge. As he worked, Marcus began formulating plans. He knew that the universe was watching, that there were forces who would stop at nothing to seize the artifact. He began creating contingencies, safe ways to hide or protect the artifact, while preparing to share its knowledge responsibly. The artifact pulsed in approval, as if recognizing his wisdom and foresight. Then came the first real test of decision-making. A message arrived through the artifact's signal, faint but unmistakable. It was a request, or perhaps a challenge from another species. They had detected the artifact and demanded that Marcus surrender it. Failure to comply, they warned, would result in immediate attack. Marcus studied the message carefully. Surrendering the artifact would mean the loss of knowledge and consciousness, but resisting could provoke war, risking countless lives. He realized that there was no perfect solution, only the choice that balanced survival, ethics, and human ingenuity. After long deliberation, Marcus made his decision. He would not surrender the artifact, but he would not attack. Instead, he created a simulation, a holographic duplicate of the artifact, and sent that in response. The simulation mimicked the signals and energy patterns perfectly, convincing the other species that they had succeeded. Meanwhile, the real artifact remained hidden, protected by Marcus's defenses and the artifact's own intelligence. It was a risky move, but it worked. The alien ships departed, satisfied with what they believed to be victory. Marcus exhaled, feeling the weight lift slightly from his shoulders. He had survived again, but he knew that this was only one of many tests. The artifact had chosen him, and he had proven that humans could rise to challenges that no other species could meet. Sitting in the quiet of his workshop, Marcus reflected on everything that had happened. The artifact was more than a machine. It was a legacy, a challenge, and a lesson. He had seen the heights and the fall of a civilization, survived attacks from other species, and made moral choices that would shape the future. And through it all, he had learned that humanity's true strength lay not in power or technology, but in ingenuity, empathy, and courage. The next steps were clear. Marcus would continue to study the artifact, learning its secrets and preparing for the challenges that lay ahead. He would protect it from those who sought it for destruction or exploitation, and he would use its knowledge to help humanity grow, not dominate. As the sons of Seraph's seven rose again, casting their light across the city, Marcus felt a renewed sense of purpose. He had survived the test of force and cunning, but the greater test, the test of wisdom and morality, was only beginning. And he was ready. Marcus stared at the artifact, its glow calm now, almost gentle. The events of the past weeks weighed heavily on him. He had unlocked its secrets, survived attacks, and made decisions that could have shaped or destroyed worlds. Yet, despite everything, he felt a strange sense of peace. For the first time, he understood the full meaning of responsibility. The artifact was not just a tool or a puzzle. It was a test, a legacy, and a bridge between a lost civilization and humanity. Outside his workshop, the twin sons of Seraph's seven rose slowly, painting the sky in soft shades of gold and pink. Marcus took a deep breath and allowed himself to look at the horizon. Humanity was small in the vast universe, but he had proven something. Humans could rise to challenges that no other species could meet. Curiosity, empathy, and ingenuity, these were strengths that defined them, and Marcus had seen them in action. He turned back to the artifact. Its crystal pulsed lightly, responding to his presence. Marcus had spent countless hours connecting with it, learning the alien consciousness that had been preserved within. And now, he realized, it was time to take the next step. The artifact had shown him knowledge beyond human imagination, energy sources that could heal planets, technologies that could expand human life across star systems, and histories of civilizations that had fallen due to arrogance and greed. But with knowledge came a choice. Marcus understood that sharing this information recklessly could lead to disaster. The universe was vast, full of species eager to seize power, and humans were only just beginning to understand the responsibility that came with such intelligence. Marcus knew that he had to decide how and when to use the artifact's knowledge. He ran his hands over the glowing surface, feeling the hum of energy pulse through his fingers. The alien consciousness was calm, almost approving. It seemed to recognize his decisions, his morality, and his ability to think beyond survival. Marcus realized that humanity's unique strength was exactly that, the ability to choose wisely, even in the face of uncertainty. Suddenly, the artifact projected an image into the room. It was the lost alien civilization again, but this time they were different. They were calm, serene, and looking toward a horizon filled with light. Marcus felt their collective consciousness reaching out to him, not as a warning but as a lesson. They had created the artifact to preserve themselves, but also to test the species that found it. Marcus realized that he had passed that test, not through power but through understanding. He took another deep breath. He would not be selfish with this knowledge. Humanity had the potential to grow, to explore, and to achieve greatness, but only if it acted with care, responsibility, and empathy. Marcus began planning ways to use the artifact's insights to help people, improve worlds, and guide exploration. He knew that secrecy was necessary, but so was education. Humans needed to learn, adapt, and evolve alongside the knowledge they now possessed. As he worked, a faint sound echoed through the workshop. The door opened slowly, and Mara appeared, her expression calm but firm. "You finished it," she said simply. "And now the real journey begins." Marcus nodded. "It's more than I imagined," he replied. "It's not just knowledge, it's responsibility, and I think humans are ready to rise to it if we are careful." Mara smiled faintly. "Careful, yes, but also bold. The universe respects courage as much as caution. You've proven both." She stepped closer, placing a hand briefly on the artifact. "Remember, Marcus, you are the first human to truly understand this. The choices you make will shape the future, not just of humanity, but of countless worlds." Marcus felt the weight of her words. He realized that he was no longer just a salvage engineer, no longer just an observer. He had become a guardian, a bridge between humanity and knowledge far greater than anything they had ever encountered. The artifact had given him insight, but it had also given him a challenge: to use that insight wisely. The following days were filled with careful planning. Marcus created secure data repositories, designed protocols to teach selected humans about the artifact's lessons, and prepared contingency plans in case others discovered its existence. Every step he took was measured, guided by both human intuition and the wisdom he had gleaned from the artifact. One night, as he worked, the artifact projected another vision, a vision of humans exploring the stars, guided by the knowledge and ethics of the alien civilization. He saw cities that floated above planets, energy sources that healed ecosystems, and beings of many species collaborating peacefully. Marcus smiled, feeling a sense of hope he had never known. Humanity was capable of this future. It would not be easy and there would be setbacks, but the potential was real. And then came the final test. A signal arrived, faint but undeniable. It was a message from a distant corner of the galaxy. A species had detected the artifact and sought its power. Marcus understood immediately that this was the ultimate challenge. He had faced intruders before, but this was different. The universe itself was watching, testing humanity's ability to handle power responsibly. Marcus did not hesitate. He activated the artifact's defenses, not with aggression, but with clever misdirection. He created a holographic duplicate of the artifact, sending it along the path of the signal. The duplicate mimicked the energy signature perfectly, convincing the other species that they had succeeded. Meanwhile, the real artifact remained secure, protected by its own intelligence and Marcus's careful planning. It was a risky move, but it worked. The signal faded and Marcus exhaled deeply. He had survived the test, not through force or deception alone, but through ingenuity, courage, and morality. Humanity had passed the test of responsibility, proving that even a small, fragile species could rise to greatness when guided by intelligence and ethics. Days turned into weeks as Marcus continued his work. The artifact became both teacher and companion, revealing knowledge and history in measured doses. Marcus learned not just about technology, but about philosophy, ethics, and the mistakes that could doom civilizations. He shared what he could with trusted humans, preparing the way for a future where humanity could reach the stars responsibly. One evening, Marcus stepped outside the workshop, looking up at the twin suns setting over Seraphis 7. The city below buzzed with life, unaware of the legacy Marcus now guarded. He felt a sense of connection, not just to the alien species preserved in the artifact, but to all of humanity. They were small, fragile, and imperfect, but capable of greatness beyond imagination. He placed a hand on the artifact one last time, feeling its warmth and hum. "We're ready," he whispered, "not because of power, but because of who we are." Mara appeared beside him, her expression unreadable but approving. "The journey is just beginning," she said. "But you've already proven that humans can rise to challenges that no other species could. That is what makes them special." Marcus nodded. He looked out at the horizon, feeling the weight of knowledge, responsibility, and hope all at once. He knew there would be dangers ahead, and that other civilizations might seek to test humanity further. But he also knew that humans had a unique gift, the ability to learn, adapt, and act with morality and courage. For the first time in weeks, Marcus allowed himself to relax. He had finished the artifact. He had faced challenges, solved problems, and made decisions that preserved knowledge and life. And most importantly, he had discovered what it truly meant to be human. The artifact pulsed softly in response, a gentle reminder that the journey was ongoing, that knowledge and responsibility were forever intertwined. Marcus smiled, feeling the weight of the universe pressing lightly on his shoulders, and knew that humanity was ready to meet it head-on. As the twin suns disappeared behind the mountains, casting long shadows across Seraphis 7, Marcus felt a sense of peace and purpose. The artifact had tested him, guided him, and revealed truths that would shape the future. Humanity had passed the trials, proving that intelligence, courage, and morality were the keys to survival and greatness. And for the first time, Marcus felt certain that humanity's story, small, fragile, and imperfect as it was, could become a story worth telling across the stars. The artifact's glow dimmed slightly, but it did not fade. It was a promise, a lesson, and a beacon. Marcus knew that he had done his part, and that humans, with all their ingenuity and courage, were ready to take the next step. The universe was vast, full of wonder and danger, but humanity had proven that it could rise to the challenge. And Marcus, standing beside the artifact he had finished, felt a quiet certainty. This was only the beginning.